Hi and welcome, I'm Tom, your host, and this is the Dropcast Movie Poster Podcast. This format is part of the Instagram blog Drop, and you can find us under @DropMacOfficial. We do reviews, news, and interviews that all have to do with the film business. Today we have a special where we'll look at the Ghostbusters Art Book by Printed in Blood and released with the help of Ghost Corp and Inside Editions. So we take a look at some of the artwork. We will have a chance to talk to some artists like James Hobson, Bill McConkey, George Kastralis, Simon Heard, and somebody else, a special guest who is extra here from Printed in Blood, and he will tell us about the concept and the project that is behind this Ghostbusters Art Book. And he's also the co-founder of Printed in Blood, and he made this round talk and the book, as I said, possible. So stay tuned and head over to our Instagram profile @DropMacOfficial to follow along with the art we are talking about, and check us out on YouTube for the video version. So now let's get started. I already talked to two artists that are featured in this great book, and there's no surprise that I really enjoyed the rest of this art that was provided for this little talk, because the book just came out and I had a chance to get an early glimpse. And I will talk now to Steven Hoveke, the co-founder of Printed in Blood, and we would like to know how this book came to realization. And while we'll talk, I will show some art I really enjoyed from the book, because at this point I usually talk about the artist's art that I interview. But since there are a couple more guests here, we will have a chance to focus on special items. And yeah, Steven, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Tom. How are you?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing all right. This is the first big project I'm doing. I mean, everybody knows that this first single interviews, the one we are doing here right now, but we're here with 4 other artists, you and me, and it's going to be a lot of fun, I hope, today. And my first question is, how did the project start? Who came up with that idea?
So we had been working with Inside Editions on another project, and it had started to run into some internal issues with getting it kind of launched and off the ground. And they had come to us on a phone call and just said, "Hey, would you guys be interested in doing a Ghostbusters book?" Because they were just in the process of signing a license with Sony, and we of course jumped at the opportunity.
Okay, and how's it come about with getting the license for Sony, or what is the usual work of Printed in Blood? What do you guys do?
So in prior volumes, this is our third book actually to come out and hit the shelves. We started off with The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, which we actually got the license ourselves for, and also printed and distributed ourselves as a sort of proof of concept to be able to go into meetings and have that book with us and show it to people to give them a solid idea of what we were trying to do. As a result of that, that led to the Netflix Stranger Things book, and then we would sit down, we would go to licensing show every year. And kind of get meetings with different studios and try to talk about properties that we were interested in, or maybe that they were interested in having us be a part of. And that we've been doing for the last 4 years. And it's just contracts take a long time. So there's a lot of stuff that's kind of always in the hopper, but that's kind of how that sort of thing starts. We then had meetings with Insight and Titan as well, because they both sort of hold licenses already for what we do, or so the style of books that we do, that they can publish an art book without just using their license that they already hold.
Okay,
and that's kind of where
is there a problem when it comes to the licensing part, when somebody has art books, kind of the style, or
it's not a problem per se. It's for in our case, the cost is prohibitive. Licensing is expensive. A lot of times, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars for a 3-year license, and then you have to worry about also having there's a business insurance you have to have. There is and then if you want to distribute, so in the case, we sat down, one of our very first meetings we ever took was with Warner Brothers. And we were looking for a license at the time for Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, when they were still licensing those before those got into sort of contract hell. And, Warner Brothers wanted a license essentially for worldwide distribution for the book. The license was $150,000. And it's, that's a little cost prohibitive to a company first starting out. It's, it's difficult to come up with that. And listen, none of us don't know how the book industry is. It's hard to sell a book today and make $150,000 on anything. So, going into a project like that and trying to make that back or have that in ahead of time is very difficult. So our first steps were to publishing companies who already held licenses, because it was easier for us to go to them and work out a deal that way using their existing license.
I see. And is it helping when they have the license? Do you still have to pay then for the license, or how does it work?
No, they pay a small fee up front, and then we are given a very small royalty on the back end past a certain number of copies sold. So it's kind of like a royalty deal, but every deal is different because they're already paying a royalty out to the studio. Okay. So then paying an additional royalty out to us is, secondary, because the studio deal is kind of the more important one, because they're doing multiple projects based on that license. Yeah, I see. Okay. And how did you come up with the Ghostbusters? You have a nice little epilogue at the end that you've wrote, and I assume it's you, right? It's SH. I assume that. Yes. And you have a foreword by Jason Reitman as well. How did this happen? How did you get it involved, or how did you get started? First of all, with Jason,
with everybody, the whole that you dreamed up this project, basically.
Well, we like I said, we already had the model in place, and we just at this point now we sort of look for properties to go out and do more projects like this. We were at Monsterpalooza in 2019, and we were just kind of set up hanging at our table, and Jason Reitman just happened to walk by. It was total happenstance. That's nice. And nice. My business partner Phil Lawrence actually had met Jason before, so he jumped out and grabbed him and brought him over to the table, and we showed him the Thing book. And we asked him if he'd be interested, told him we were doing a Ghostbusters project, and asked him if he'd be interested in writing a forward for it. And he gave us his contact info and said, "Sure, hit me up." It was literally that easy.
Wow, that sounds very easy. I mean,
it's kind of.
But I guess that's the easy part. I mean, getting all the artists under one roof. How many artists are in the book?
In this one, there are 176.
That's a lot of artists. How does it work? How does the logistic of all that pan out?
That's all me. That's we have three people in Printed in Blood. One is my creative director, John Hill. Yeah. He does the book design itself, the physical design.
Phil is my business partner, and we sort of do the business side of things. And then I'm sort of in the middle. I sort of bounce back and forth between the two, but kind of handle all the day-to-day operations of everything. I'm sorry, I lost track of the question.
Yeah, don't worry. First of all, pat yourself on the back for getting 170 plus artists under one roof.
Right, the artists. So what we have is when we first started off with the Thing book, we put together a database just by artists we knew. Artists we've run across whose work we liked, artists who we found online whose stuff and we were really sort of diving into that alt poster world that was blooming so well, back 4 or 5 years ago. And so we had originally probably about 500-600 artists we reached out to or contacted for art for the Thing book. Our artist database now is sitting at a little over 1,400 people. We go out with a single email too. Yeah. But and the nice thing is not every property is everyone's cup of tea. So, there's certain people who like some things and some people don't like other things. So it's the Thing book was great because it was a real monster book. So a lot of the monster guys did pieces for that. Now we haven't really gone back to a property that had a real true monster in it. So a lot of those guys haven't been back. But a lot of those guys, and we developed relationships with a lot of the guys in that first book who've taken part in every project we've done since.
Okay. And how does it work for the artists? Do they get also basically royalties for their art, or every copy sold, or what's the deal on that? Or is it prestige project?
So it's a little different for every project. What we try and get into our deals, and we've kind of worked towards now, is working out a temporary print license with that particular studio, so that the artists are able to sell a certain number of prints of their piece, and they recoup, a certain amount of money that way. What we did with the Thing book originally was we were able to sell, and we still do, anyone who was in that book can buy the books from us at wholesale price and resell them. And I have probably a half dozen guys who come back to us every few months and buy another case or two of books. It's a little more difficult for the guys who are in the UK, obviously, because shipping, the Thing book is £6, and just getting a case of those books, which is 35 pounds overseas, is almost $100.
Yeah,
and it becomes cost prohibitive, unfortunately, for us to ship, because we didn't have a distribution set up for overseas.
Okay, and speaking of, since it's so heavy, what are the dimensions of the book?
The Ghostbusters book? The Ghostbusters book is actually a little bit bigger than the Ghostbusters and the Stranger Things books dimensions were dictated by the publishers. Okay. They had dimensions already set up in mind for those projects. And also the same with the Firefly book coming out in September. Those projects are dictated by them. Our next project we're handling. We've got the license for that ourselves. So we'll be putting the size back to the Thing book size. Okay. Not as thick.
Okay, what was the dimension for the book? Which kind of?
The Ghostbusters book is, I believe, 9.5 by 13.
Okay, that's a good size, I'd say. And do you have already the physical copies in hand? The release is imminent. Can you give us the details on the release for everybody out there? That's a book.
The release in the U.S. is the 19th. So that's tomorrow.
Yeah. And a couple days back from, because this is gonna come out on Friday. So yeah, it's been released.
Yeah, exactly. And because I know Insight made a deal with for their European distribution with Titan.
Okay.
So Titan is actually handling all that on your side.
Perfect. Everybody, since we talked to Steven already, and he gave me a good perspective on what this book is about and what this project is about, I want to hear what your relation is to the Ghostbusters and what this project means to you. Let's start out with James.
Wow. For me, it kind of stemmed from the toys. I think I was about 4 years old when Ghostbusters 2 came out. I think the first one came out when I was born, so I was a little bit young for that. So yeah, it sort of stems from the toys for real Ghostbusters. I can remember McDonald's did a promotion when I was about 4 years old. In the Happy Meal, they had like a can, and they promised that there was a Slimer that was going to come out of the can if you opened it. It was basically an empty can. But my dad took me into the dark cupboard under the stairs and was like, get ready, and opened it and was like, did you see Slimer come out of the can? So things like that I have strong connections to. And then the films probably came after, more as a retro thing.
Yeah, that's really good. I can see in the back that you clearly still collect from even to this day. Yeah, what's your favorite piece in the back?
Sorry?
What's your favorite piece in the back?
Favorite piece? The Lego Ecto 1's pretty good, actually.
Hey, why are we not seeing it? Or is it too tiny? Can you pull it up?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, there it is.
There we go. It's a bit dusty.
That's great.
As well.
That's great.
And then you get the ghost.
Of course. Oh.
Yeah. Oh.
Oops.
Oh.
We broke it.
Yeah, there's the three characters that started the first film.
Did the Ecto just break on the floor?
No.
It's Lego. The only thing
guy fell over.
Yeah.
So
The only thing you break is going to be your feet somehow when you step on it.
Yeah. That's the problem with Lego.
Exactly. Okay, George, what is your relation to that?
My relation to Ghostbusters actually came through a cartoon originally. Mm-hmm. So I was a child of the 80s, and Ghostbusters was everywhere. You couldn't avoid it. But yeah, it was the cartoon was how I sort of began my relationship with Ghostbusters, and I had all the characters and the toys as well. And it wasn't probably until a few years later that I saw the film. I was born in 82. The film came out in 84. So I think I saw it around when I was probably about 5 years old, so say 88, thereabouts. And it's probably not a film for kids, but yeah, I saw it as a kid. And then Ghostbusters 2 as well came out, and I remember seeing that at the cinema. And yeah, just spurred a relationship with the film ever since.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. I mean, I remember watching the cartoon as well, and I remember the Boogeyman. This was like one of the scariest things I ever saw. As I was a child, I was really afraid of the Boogeyman, and it came out a little bit later, so it was still like a kid situation for me because in Germany, like with the dubbing and stuff like that, it took some time. But yeah, that was crazy.
We used to get the Filmation Ghostbusters, which was a completely different Ghostbusters as well.
Yeah.
So as a kid, there was kind of a double helping of Ghostbusters. They were completely different franchises.
Yeah.
Same concept. Pretty cool.
What was your what was your scariest monster or ghost they had to?
I don't recall being scared of any of them. There was one called Bug Eye, which I had the toy of, which was pretty cool. And the toy sort of came apart and it became two different monsters. And when you push the tail of it, his eye would pop out.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was pretty cool. I wouldn't call it scary, but that was good fun.
Okay, that's great. Simon, how about you?
I saw Ghostbusters in the cinema because I was born in 78, I think. Came out in 84, so I was quite young. Is that right?
Yeah,
what,
I guess.
You were born?
I don't know. You know when you were born?
Yeah, 78. Sorry, I was asking the question about when the film came out. But yeah, I saw it in the cinema.
It was 84.
Yeah, it was awesome. I loved it. The beginning scene scared the crap out of me, with the ghost in the library. But that was the point I probably got hooked. And I think Ghostbusters had a big part of me getting into horror films later on in my teenage years. But yeah, it's amazing. Nostalgia for me is a big deal. It's so 80s, which I love, everything 80s. The soundtrack's great and the acting's great. It's awesome. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got into it.
Okay, last but not least, Bill, I mean, you made the cover, so we see your art. You represent the Ghostbusters most, I would say, in this group. How is your relation?
It's quite easy, actually. It was the first film I saw at the cinema. It was Ghostbusters. Crack was the first one I watched on video, and Ghostbusters was the first film that I went to the cinema to watch. So it made quite a mark, really. And then I collected the toys, and then I got a bit obsessed with the toys even later in life and started drawing the toys and stuff like that. So I think I've always had something of an obsession with Ghostbusters, basically. It's always been in my life, really. So.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I remember my first film was also a nerd franchise. It was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think it was the third part, though, the not so good part. But I really like the all Asian Japanese themes.
My first film memory is seeing Jaws.
Okay, way to go! Way to go!
You're showing your age now.
I was 7.
Right, so now we need to work out your.
Did you go to any water after that, or you?
Yeah, that summer we actually took a trip out to California. So yeah.
No, I'm not going to go in.
between no, you know, that's funny because I never I was never afraid of the water or sharks or anything like that. I really enjoyed it, and I think that was probably just a kind of portent of things to come for me. But I remember standing in line outside the theater with my father, my brother.
Yeah, I remember because I think my mom saw Jaws at some point in her life, and when I went the first time to California, she told me, "Yeah, don't go into the water too far. there's going to be sharks, you're going to be eaten. She was very worried, and it was like crazy. Okay, Steven, I mean, we talked to 4 artists that are in the book, and we showed during your first, like, our little interview, we showed a lot of different artists that participated in this project.
Sure.
How did you get all these artists under one roof? How did this happen?
Well, we go out to, our group of artists with a project, and, when we started out, we had a small database of, 400 or 500 people, and I say small in relativity. And now our database is over 1,400 artists we go out to, and it's nice because not everybody likes every property. So it's cool because everybody comes back to different projects, and we've got guys who put pieces in for some projects, and maybe because of scheduling can't do pieces for every project, but we'll come back and do a piece for the next project maybe, and sometimes it just depends. Sometimes it's we just finished a Firefly book, and we had a couple of guys who are just historically crazy Firefly fans. They love that series, they love those, and there was no way they weren't going to do something. Yeah. And I had one guy actually do 4 pieces for it, who normally just does 1 piece for the book, and it's just because he was so excited for us to be doing a Firefly book. But yeah, so it's just a matter of the property you have and sort of the popularity and where it touches people and if they have time to submit.
Okay, and how many artists are in the book? I don't think we touched.
There are 176.
Okay, and that's a lot of artists. And how much art did you send over to get approved?
So I think that the final number of pieces we actually sent into Sony, or Ghost Corp as it may be, was around 250, give or take, 240, 250, something like that. And then there were just, there were always varying reasons why, a piece does or doesn't get accepted. We have an open submission policy, so literally anyone can submit a piece for the book. It was funny, a little side bit. One of the artists actually sent along with his piece, which did get accepted into the book. He also, in his little sort of artist testimonial piece that he sent, he talked about watching the movie with his nephew for the first time and how it kind of impacted his nephew. And as soon as his nephew saw it the first time, and he actually included 2 of his nephew's drawings. He was 7 years old, and so we actually included on facing his artwork, two of his nephew's pieces on the facing page in the book. So everyone will see those. It'll be a good little thing for him when he grows up and be like, hey, I was in the book already.
You're an author. You're published.
I'm a published artist.
Exactly. And how is this process, or on which basis did they pick the art? I mean, you sent in a lot, but not everything got back.
Yeah, so we kind of do internally an initial kind of overview. John Hill, my creative director, and myself will sit down on the phone and we'll just go through every single piece in the book, and kind of decide. We'll kind of like glean through it initially. Like sometimes, like in previous projects, if there are very specific things that stand out in the subject matter, like for example, like we got tons of Slimer pieces, obviously. As the book shows, we've got lots of pieces of the car. We've got lots of Gozer pieces, and Ghostbusters is great because it's got so many different kind of iconic images associated with it that everyone has their favorite. And even if across a span of several hundred artists, you're still able to get a good cross section and a lot of differences. One of the great bits about, and we do very little art direction internally. We don't tell artists what we want them to do. It's like we know a guy who's good at animals and be like, oh, make sure you do an animal from the movie. We don't do that. We want the artist to create something that they love about the film, and we just kind of hope for it. One of the artists we went to for the Thing art book, when we first approached him, we had a guy sitting with him at the convention, and he said, well, how do you know you won't just get 100 pictures of the dog? And I said, well,
I go, we fully expect to get 100 pictures of the dog. And as it turns out, we didn't. We ended up getting, just a great cross section of the films, because just everyone has something about that film that they absolutely dearly love, and that's what they'll generally kind of steer towards.
So talking to you guys, the artists, after the creative brief, or you got the message, hey, there's a new Ghostbusters art book coming. What was your initial idea or your first reaction to it? Let's go around. Let's start with James.
Great, personally, because it's a property that I love. Having worked with Printed in Blood on the Stranger Things project, I knew how well they treated the artists, how everything was just run properly. So yeah, I was totally down for it. The briefs are really open. So, and the style is open as well. They don't, like Steve was saying, pick people and say, do that style even. If you want to kind of use this time to choose something new for yourself, it's a great opportunity, because you haven't got clients coming in saying, we like this from your portfolio, we'd like it like that. You can get something printed which is exploration, and it's great. It's creative, and I think that comes across in a lot of the work as well.
George, how was it for you?
For me, it was two things that really appealed. The first thing was obviously getting to do something for Ghostbusters, but the second thing was getting to do something for Printed in Blood as well, because I was a fan of Printed in Blood, the other books that had come out, and I really wanted to do something for Stranger Things, but I didn't have the time to submit, and it just so happened that I was actually very, very, very sad that I didn't get the time to do it. And then Ghostbusters came along almost immediately. And it was one of those moments where I was like, I was quite happy that I didn't do one, because I love Ghostbusters so much. So I was very, very grateful for the opportunity to, one, submit to a book that I wanted to be a part of already, and two, to get to do it for a property that I grew up loving and still as an adult love. So yeah, it was just that. It was just sort of like two things sort of came together really well that I wanted to be a part of.
Okay, Bill, how was it for you? How was your first reaction?
Well, first I thought fantastic. I mean, this is kind of my wheelhouse for this kind of stuff. But and then I thought, well, I've got quite a lot of Ghostbusters work already out there, so I had to come up with a different idea, something more original, I thought. But yeah, I mean. Like nailed on it as a brief. So I couldn't have picked up a better subject for me. So yeah, dream come true, really.
And Simon.
Same as James, really. I worked on the Stranger Things book, which was awesome, and the art was incredible. This brief came out a similar time. So it was like working on two amazing different books, kind of side by side between client work. But yeah, I was super excited when I saw Ghostbusters and knew exactly what I was going to work on pretty much from the beginning. And it was obviously Stay Puft. He's like my favourite kind of character across the whole film, like all the different films. So yeah, it was brilliant. And likewise, same as James, thanks to Printed in Blood for giving us the opportunity to work on such amazing books. The quality is just insane of the artwork. And can't wait to see the book, the Ghostbusters book, when it lands in post.
Yeah,
so,
Thank you again. Also, Steven and Printed in Blood, that I could get a digital copy to look at this cool stuff you did and use it for our little release here. And my question, the last question is for Steven for the first round before we get into every artist individually. Why didn't you include older pieces? What was behind that? Because there are a couple of really cool ones out there already, and why not use that? Or was it a license issue? Or
So from the beginning, we kind of built our model around, when we first started mapping out the idea for the Thing art book, I had gone online and spent really a couple of days just searching and pulling down all of the alt poster images and that kind of stuff that had been done already for the thing. And I mean, I've got a folder that's got, you know, a couple hundred images in it of like, you know, alt posters and alt pieces that artists have done and that. And I could, you know, we could have put out a completely separate book of stuff that's just been seen already. But the whole selling point of kind of what we do is to give, you know, to give people a chance to do something new. We don't want to just kind of, you know, it's one of the reasons we ask artists not to share their work before the book comes out. You know, it's a sense of something new, something people haven't seen. You know, it's just kind of like, we would rather have, you know, in the case of the Thing book, there are certain pieces that we wanted badly enough that, you know, the artists who involved weren't capable of actually creating a completely new piece, but they were willing to go back to their original piece and sort of give it a new colorway. Anthony Petrie, with his map of the Outpost 31 compound, he actually sent us about 4 different new color versions of that he hadn't ever done it before as a print or had never shown anyone, and we picked one from there. Same thing with Dan Mumford and his Thing piece. He did a recolored, a multicolor version of his Thing piece. But we really just want, you know, new pieces of artwork. And it's not about what, you know, what's been seen already. The only thing in the Ghostbusters book that that's already been out there and has been seen are Dan Brereton's 4 portrait pieces, which were done for the 88 Mile an Hour series that came out, 10 years ago, maybe 8-10 years ago. But they'd never been really seen without the trade dress on them. I know he did a small run of prints that were available from him, I think, but no one had really seen them, you know, kind of full open without the text.
Okay, that's perfect. That was a good transition. Now we can go over to the artists individually and look at their work and what the work in progress was. And we're going to start up with James. So James, I have your piece here. It's in the book. It's on page 65, I think it is, and it's a very not simple but very minimalistic piece. How did this came about? You sent me a couple of pages. Let me know which one I should show to the world.
So the one that appears in the book is. There's a version with like more green lights going over the marshmallows. That's something I worked on a little bit later. So it was something that I did pretty close to the deadline in the end. Hence, it's quite minimal. And I spend a lot of time on portraits using kind of like digital airbrushing. But for this one, I really wanted to try gouache, or however you pronounce, digitally.
Okay.
See, this kind of fit. My original ideas were quite different, but I even went out and bought the like Ghostbusters Ultimate Visual Guide History, which I think Titan as well.
Yeah, I pulled it. I just pulled that up so you can see the...
Yeah, so I like went through that, and I was getting so involved in the process, thinking, how deep shall I go? Like, should this be a really deep cut Ghostbusters thing? But the visual that kept coming back to me in the end was just a trap. Whenever I think of like Ghostbusters as a kid, it was just playing with that trap for absolutely ages. So yeah, that worked with the minimal images in the end, and just the fact that it is a comedy at the end of the day, you know, kind of using the trap as a bin almost for the marshmallows.
Yeah, that's a very cool concept. You said already, you sent me the G with the like Slimer, or what is it? Or the regular one.
So it's a play on the logo.
Okay, I got it. Now I got it. Yeah,
that's something I've done previously. Online, there's a 36 days of type thing which people do. So each day it will go through the alphabet, and people post their version on the alphabet. So I worked on that a little bit. Again, didn't finish it, as I never do them. But yeah, that was something I was going to maybe expand upon originally.
Okay, I see.
But in the end, I didn't. The gouache thing was like, yeah, I want to give that a go.
And what was your why did you decide to do like greener in the end about the cover? I mean not cover, but what's in the book.
Yeah. Just when I was thinking about it physically after I'd submitted, I was like, well, the rays of light would be covering, if things were going into the center of the trap, the rays of light would be like covering on both sides like that, with the marshmallows going in the middle. So there'd be kind of like green light covering the packaging.
Okay.
So it was a physical kind of thing, and I brightened it up, gave it a bit more glow around the trap like opening.
Okay.
I think they both work. It was just me being really like, finicky and like constantly working on it, as artists do sometimes.
Okay. And as we just heard from Steven, that this piece is are you gonna have a license for that? And if so, if you can print that, how would you like to print it? Like a G-Clay or screen print, or if that's possible?
Yeah. No, that would have to be a G-Clay. Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, are there that many colors in
galleries? Like it. Sorry.
Are there that many colors in there? I think there could be a screen print, couldn't it? But I don't know.
You could probably minimize and layer it so it could be a screen print.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think there wasn't that too many colors, but it wasn't something in the process that I was building it up with, a limited number of shades. It was what I'm used to in doing it by eye, I guess.
Okay, that's for now, and let's go back to the others, and let's take a look at George's art next. So George, how are you? How do you like the other pieces that you've seen so far?
I haven't actually seen any others yet.
You haven't seen any? Oh my God.
No, I haven't got the book, so I haven't actually seen any yet. And everyone's been good with keeping to the rules of not sharing it. So I'm looking forward to the surprise of seeing the book.
Okay, then I'm very glad that I feel honored, by the way, Steven. So Steven can hear me, but we can't hear him now. But thank you for doing this. So I have your finished piece here, and as well, you had the chance to write a little text as well. I think James also, right? But I'm not sure right now.
Yeah, my piece. It's a really interesting one. Like I don't know if I should probably admit it too much, but it's a piece on. It took a while for me to actually like it myself, to be honest. I was very, very sort of still finding my feet in the world of film posters or alternative film posters. And from an artistic point of view, I was something I'm all right now with, but I was struggling at the time because everything I did, everyone was always saying to me, oh, I had a particular style. And for whatever reason, it's something that didn't sit particularly well with me at the time. It's something I love now. But at the time, and that was the Ghostbusters piece was this one random piece in my portfolio, and there's nothing else in my portfolio that looks anything like it, where I was desperately trying to do something that wasn't my style, but ended up sort of being a thing that made me be okay with the fact that I have a style and that I should go forward with it. So it's a piece that when I did it initially, I sent it in. So it was quite a small time frame, quite a small deadline to do the work originally. So I sort of sent it not expecting it actually to be selected. And when I got an email back saying it was, I was completely blown away by it. And it's a piece that I've come to really appreciate. Like when I think Steven shared it in the group chat we had the other day, and it was like the first time I'd seen it sort of out of context. I was like, oh, actually, it's not too bad. It's not as bad as
Who made that? Who made that? That's a good piece.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's not as the artist, I guess you're always more critical of your own work. But I do look back at it as in like it was this real kind of defining piece where I sort of like had to get to that point, do that, and then go forward from there. So it's become quite important without me realizing it. The idea behind it purely came from nostalgia. Like I said, I was a child in the 80s, so it wasn't unheard of for us to be in the video shop all the time as kids. It was quite a family thing for us to go to the video shop on a Saturday night and pick some movies. So my piece was sort of to emulate like an old VHS cover. That's why it's got a little bit of grain to it, a little bit of like worn edges. It's got a sort of a musty kind of look to it. And my idea was just sort of to emulate that old VHS cover you'd see back in the video shops from back in the day.
How did you pick the different characters, or with the kind of moments they are pictured here? And can you walk us through the process? I have, like, you gave me 3 pictures that I will show here, and I will start with the first one with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, my process is really, I don't really have a process. I just sort of start drawing, just sort of see what happens, and that was definitely the case with this. There were the 4 main characters that I wanted to draw. Originally, I actually wanted to draw the whole scene from the rooftop at the bottom with like lasers and all sorts going on, but I just sort of ran out of time to do that. So I more focused on the 4 main characters, and the scene with Bill Murray is quite iconic, and I figured, I'm sure you probably see that scene a lot throughout the book, because it is quite an iconic scene where
I think it was in there twice only, I think, if I remember correctly.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
it's not that much.
You know, it's where he gets slimed, and it's just such an iconic scene in that film. And the Dan Aykroyd sort of picture, I think, came from the same scene where he sees Slimer for the first time and the cigarette's dangling from his lip. So the reason I think I chose those pictures is because they just sort of sat well in that diamond shape that I have them in. And yeah, it just filled the space really well for what I wanted to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go back to the others for a second. And our next artist is going to be Simon, because we're going to say Bill for last because he made the cover. I spoiled that for everybody now. So the cover you can already see, though, in the back. There's a little spoiler there too. Okay, Simon, let me pull up your art first, and I'll switch over to you. There you are. So this is a crazy piece, totally different from the others we have seen so far. And how did this happen?
Well, I work in vectors, so what I wanted to do with this one is build it up based on shapes, and the final kind of scene of, it was like a reimagining of Stay Puft jumping off the building or being plummeted to his death shortly before the marshmallow hits Walter Peck on the head in the street, which is a really good thing in the film. So yeah, I kind of wanted to make it quite graphical, and my style's kind of a bit melty, and I always include like drips and things like that into it. So logically,
it looks very graffiti, I'd say.
Yeah, that's it's all my sort of artwork kind of follows that sort of path, and I sort of look at the bigger pieces and try and fit them all together in some way. So I've got like every single art piece features drips, and this one was like perfect for Stay Puft to actually to work on that. So I kind of had an idea in my head of what I wanted it to look like, and sort of focused on Stay Puft first, and built it up slowly in paths, masks, and kind of vector points. It's a very kind of slow process, but I'm used to doing it over time. It took about a week actually to complete.
I was wondering, I mean, it looks like there's a lot of work, especially if you do vector art. Like, I don't know, people probably can't imagine how vector art works, like that don't have a clue about graphic design or anything. I did a vector art poster myself, and it was like a pain. It took forever. But I mean, I never have done anything before, but I mean, mine doesn't look even closely like that. So how long did it take?
Yeah, it took about a week, and then as with all these pieces, the more complicated it gets with the brushes and masks and points and paths, I start to get a bit of a sort of lag on my Mac, and even though I've got like maximum RAM, so patience is a key with all of these. This one, sort of got quite, I think it reached about 1 gigabyte in size at one point, and so it was like a slow build, but so once I'd worked out Stay Puft, I wanted to get the Central Park building in the background at the right angle to give it a sense of size. So that's like one of those work in progress images, is just sorting out windows basically. And then that was quite a sort of long-winded task of basically masking out every single window, getting the brushes right within each shape and the sort of tone of it and the colours and everything else to make it quite neon, which is what I always work in, those sort of blacklight inspired colours mostly.
Who was first? Did you do Stay Puft first or the building first?
Yeah, Stay Puft was first. I sort of mapped it out in a logical way based on shapes and just built each section, like the hands, the head, the feet, the body, just to make it, I wanted it to be quite solid looking in the shape of each section, if that makes sense. And then build up the details on top. Maybe I went a bit too detailed based on the size of the print, possibly, but it's kind of, I get a bit of a sort of OCD if I see any spots that are missing details. And it was very, it's very much me working at like zoomed in size and then just logically going through it and putting in the details. So.
Okay, and I forgot to ask George, but we're going to ask him when we're back together in the group. How would you like the this kind of print to come out, if you can print it?
I print on like photographic paper, kind of high-end C-type. Kodak Fujiflex is a sort of substrate I use quite a lot, or the metallic version of that, which would be quite cool. It's basically, because the colours are quite RGB, if you print on photo, like the sort of high-end photo paper, it comes out a lot brighter than it would if it was on like a sort of matte-based paper. So that's how I would normally do it on that sort of substrate.
I could imagine that because like the top of the like the sky basically looks like a big disco ball, and that would probably look good on holofoil as well, if you do that.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about, I'd quite like to do some holographic stickers as well, maybe, or something that sort of pulls through the white a bit, like it makes it look a bit sort of shimmery. That would be awesome.
Okay, let's go back to the group. Okay, George, I totally forgot to ask you, how do you like the print to come out?
I'd probably experiment between a G-clay print or a digital print, because it has the smoke effect in the background of the thing, and also with wanting a bit of a vintage feel to it, I feel I might get a better reaction with a digital print. So I'd experiment between the two and just sort of see which one came out better. Perfect.
Let's move over to Bill for the cover art. Or we see the cover art while we're talking. You have not though, but the viewers have. I pulled it up now, and could you tell us a little bit how did you came up with the idea? I mean, we just heard that you had to rush like the artwork really fast, and you have the cover art. I mean, that's a tough spot to have. It's like the pole position in Formula One.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I spoke to another illustrator that's in the book, and we both had the same idea of what we were going to do, and it was something really elaborate. It's going to be the final scene where they've got their proton packs charged and they're firing at Staple Marshmallow Man. And it was going to be like from a book perspective, and it's all kinds of. It was going to be crazy, the amount of detail. Well, I didn't have that time because I work for magazines, so I always have another magazine deadline on. So I had 2 days in the end to do that, and I did it in a day. It was, it's just one of those things. So I was rushing around for an idea, and I was thinking, well, what can I draw? And it's just a doodle from on basically a piece of lined paper that I'd done. And it was just about the composition, like an arrow basically pointing down. It just spoke to me, and I did it. I just went straight on the computer and I'd done most of it within the afternoon. So, and then I sent it to Steve, and then I didn't think anything about it for 6 months because I'd done it in in a day and a half, really. In the end, I sent it to Steve, and I didn't hear anything, and I just thought, he hasn't made the book. and then I got the news just before Christmas that that they really liked it, or whoever had approved it, and it was going to be. It wasn't just in the book; it was probably going to be the cover at that point as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great. It makes definitely a great cover. And I mean, speaking of covers, you just made what was it, Empire?
Yeah, I just created the Empire cover, yeah, Celebration Cinema cover, yeah. So completely different from this, so line drawing, lots of characters. What you would probably expect me to do for this kind of thing, which is what I was going to do, a lot of characters, but in the end I did one character and a lot of light, basically.
Yeah, quite important one though. I mean, I like this rainbow of colors in the back, and it's like a really cool illustration to like have like this rainbow of artists that do different works. I think it fits very, very well for the cover. Okay, Bill, I totally forgot to ask you as well. How do you like the print to come out if you're gonna do one?
Yeah, I think I usually go with a Gicley on a matte paper. I think it's open for other things because the colours are kind of fluorescent and neon. So there's maybe holofoil things you could do with that, but I think just a very high costing Gicley print on thick paper.
Yeah, if you could do like the holofoil thing, if there's like, is it a gold holofoil or something like that? Because like Slimer's teeth would look probably really great on a holofoil.
Yeah, just some of those colours just would look great like that, and with the lighting as well. Yeah, I could see.
Okay,
it
I'm
like
taking
that,
an AP, so note down, please, that I'm interested. Okay, since this is also a movie poster podcast and I do a lot of movie reviews, I also wanted to talk about the Ghostbusters movie. That means Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2, and of course the infamous female Ghostbuster film. And I put you in little groups here that people can already see. Basically, George and Bill, you're going to start out with Ghostbusters 1. What are the likes and the don't likes for this movie?
Well, I like everything about this movie. I don't think there's anything bad about it, to be honest. It's a great movie. It encapsulates a time in the history, in the world, in the 80s. Very much reminds me of my childhood. If I had one con, only one, I would have loved to have seen more character development for Winston, for Ernie Hudson's character. I think he would have been better served, especially in Ghostbusters 2, as opposed to just sort of being a sideline character. But again, it's a great movie. I can't fault
Bill,
it.
Well, dislikes. Oh, where do I start? It's a terrible film, awful soundtrack. No, I'm joking. It's brilliant. I have no complaints. You know, if you're going to say what is a perfect film, I know it's maybe clouded in nostalgia, but I would put it up there as a near perfect film. I'm sure there'll be people out there that say that maybe they could have given Sigourney Weaver maybe a bit of, actually she's brilliant in that film, so maybe given a bit more in that. But I mean, everything's great in it. I mean, even I remember reading that Rick Moranis wasn't even the first choice in that role, and it was supposed to be the guy out of Uncle Buck, John Candy, was the first choice for that role, or even Eddie Murphy, I did as well, was in the running in that film. But I just couldn't see anyone else but him in that role. So no massive complaints from me with regards to that.
I don't think Bill Murray was the first choice. I think John Belushi was the first choice for that role.
Also, yeah, that's true.
But he passed away, obviously. But you can't imagine it without Bill Murray, though.
Yeah. It maybe would have turned into the female Ghostbusters. Too much fun.
Maybe.
You're just talking about just completely different kind of film, you know, when you start making those kind of substitutions.
That's the fantasy cast is always something really weird. Since speaking of fantasy cast, I had like a podcast on Tiger King, and we were talking who would play a Joe Exotic, and I think nobody of us thought it's going to be Nick Cage in the end. Now that he's playing him. It's like really weird, but okay, we'll see. We'll see how that's gonna go.
I always felt David Spade was right for that from the beginning. He's basically already made the movie when he made
true.
Joe Dirt.
Yeah.
So,
but I also say would say Danny McBride. Danny McBride is also a good choice, and Will Ferrell for the other guy from Florida. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Oh,
they would have made good choices for both of those characters. Okay, moving back to Ghostbusters here, and Ghostbusters 2 is in the talk, and James and Simon gonna give us their opinion on this movie. James, you want to start out?
Well, I watched the film kind of like in preparation, really, for talking with you guys. And it was only 2 days ago. And I'm kind of struggling to remember like large chunks of it, to be honest, which speaks volumes, to be honest. But I remember really enjoying everything that Bill Murray does in it, and Sigourney Weaver again. Like they kind of carry on that romantic theme, and yeah, it's kind of weird. Like I've remembered it for those, like the more straight parts, rather than anything else. I think it kind of looks even more dated than the first with some of the special effects somehow. Like the Statue of Liberty just looks a bit again, like Winston should have been used to the full again. Moranis is great, but again, they maybe could have done more with him. They kind of, there's references to the first one, and like the successes of the first one, talking about, you know, proton packs as toys and things, but it all seems a little bit forced for me. Okay. It's okay, but it's difficult second movie, isn't it?
Yeah, had a lot to live up to, I think, and the characters were so good in the first one and likable that I think, although the characters are pretty cool in the second one, I think, yeah, it's difficult to get them to that level. I mean, obviously Slimer makes an appearance momentarily. But yeah, like Vigo's quite a cool sort of bad guy. The painting's obviously awesome. I think, yeah, it just lost a bit of the charm, I guess, of the first one. But on the whole, it wasn't too bad. But yeah, it wasn't as good as the first one.
It definitely wasn't, yeah. Let's come to our last one, the female Ghostbuster one. Steven, you have strong feelings for this one.
Yeah, you can say that. I've reviewed the film since, and I kind of maintained my point I had when I was sitting in an office at a previous job when the first trailer was released for it, and we were all very excited because, you know, we'd been hearing all the press and everything beforehand, and the production, all that kind of stuff. And Paul Feig, you know, a good director. You know, the quality of that cast is, you know, unquestionable. And that first trailer came out, and I got done watching it. And I turned around to my buddy in the office and I said, "They've got a big problem." I go, "That trailer's not funny." I go, "And if your trailer's not funny," I go, "and that's going to be a lot of your high points and stuff from your film," I go, "They've got a major problem." And it didn't change. You know, when the film came out and I got around to seeing it, and I didn't avoid seeing it because the trailer didn't move me or anything. I was still excited to see it regardless. I wanted to see what they did. I just think that I don't know what the problem was. The chemistry somehow didn't work. You know, 4 incredibly talented actresses, very funny actresses, and a talented director, and it just you know, it didn't come together, you know, for me. I mean, I know people have seen it and they enjoyed the film immensely, but for me, the jokes just didn't land. I thought that a lot of it was forced. Hemsworth was great, but you know, it's not an anti-female thing. I to this day have a standing idea on how to make a successful Charlie's Angels franchise, which they've been completely unable to pull off yet. But I think I've figured it out. I think I've unlocked the key.
Okay, studio bosses, here.
But yeah, it's just but it's just
it's just it's not good.
Yeah, that's true. My thoughts are kind of the same on the movie. I enjoyed the idea, the initial idea of it, that there's a cool female cast. The director made Bridesmaid. He did a lot of funny stuff. Except down the road, he made some weird choices, but okay. And I really loved Chris Hemsworth in it because I love to see him in a different role, and I think all of that worked to perfection. I mean, there were a lot of feminist talk surrounding the movie, and critics who are mostly male, and especially in our case right now, who have this certain view maybe of a film, but. I think the film wasn't really that. It's not about that. The film wasn't just that good, and it had a problem. Not maybe for me, it wasn't not the funny part, but it was like how the characters come together, and they were. I think they were going for like too far. They were trying too much, like try to be funny, like forcefully funny, and not naturally funny. That just comes from the acting and the character chemistry. And I think, yeah, that's what happened to this movie. Okay, guys. Now we'll come over to the rating part. And hold on 1 second here. My phone froze. Low battery mode. Yeah, we don't want that. I'm back. Okay, now we come over to the rating part, and the rating is going to be a very easy system. Everybody's going to hold up their fingers. How much points they're going to give the movie. We're going to start out with Ghostbusters. So let me see those fingers. What do you got, guys? See a 10, I see a 9, I see a 10, I see a 9, and I see a 9 for this movie. That's 9 point something. So very, very almost 100% approval rating here. Now we come to the next movie, Ghostbusters 2. Fingers up, guys. I see a 6. I see another 7. I'm 2 7s, 1 6, and that's an 8. And all.
8.
What's that?
I liked it.
You like it, yeah? Exactly. And then we also have a 7. So it's around 7 point something ish. That's a good rating, I'd say. And now female Ghostbusters. I'm excited to what you guys are going to come up with now. We got a 4, we got a 2, a peace sign, and a 4, and it's a 6. Is it a 6 or a 5? 6. Perfect. Thank you, Bill. That's a lot of points. What do you like so much about it?
Well, the film, I don't have the problems that a lot of people have. I know it wasn't perfect. It isn't perfect, and I remember I went to the cinema to watch that, and there was a blackout while I was watching it. So that cinema experience lasted about 7 hours. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's pretty good. You know, it's just an average film, really, just slightly above average film.
Simon, you just watched the half, right?
That's the definition of insult to injury.
Simon, you watched just the half, right?
Yeah,
that's why the 2 points. Otherwise, it would be 4, huh?
Yeah, it would be.
Okay, perfect. 2 peace signs. Let's take that. Okay, that's a good ending, guys. Thank you again for doing this. Thank you for Printed in Blood Inside Editions. Thank you, James. Thank you, George. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Bill, for doing this. It's been a pleasure, and let's talk soon when the next book for Firefly is coming out. Okay, guys, have a great one. Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
Tom.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.